Well, it is orange and blue today, too, Mace. I feel like I should kick up my feet, but I'm not sitting next to you for this time. We're
Uh,
connected in our hearts and maybe in our minds
hmm.
because perhaps with this Russell Wilson move today, it means Sean Payton already fell in love.
I like that notion. I like that idea.
I do too.
Yeah, that there was a conversation. Of course, he had a few conversations with quarterbacks, and that he found himself smitten. Now, then it becomes a matter of being able to acquire the quarterback with whom you're smitten.
Right.
Maybe, hey, maybe he's not dating exclusively yet. Maybe it's like the Bachelor or the Bachelorette, and right now he loves two of them, loves three of
Mm,
them, right? Maybe not all of them, but well, maybe he's decided that who's advancing in the next round, who got the roses, but there's multiple roses that were given out in Indianapolis in Sean Payton's heart.
right. Well, had the Russell Wilson news not come down today, you and I were going to talk about the drills. We have yet to talk publicly about the drills that we saw. You saw all the quarterbacks. I saw McCarthy's group
Mm-hmm.
before I had to leave for the airport. And I will tell you this: the best passer there was Penix or Bo Nix.
Mm-hmm.
McCarthy was impressive. His out routes, as I expected, maybe lose a little bit, but I feel his mind and his anticipation will keep him ahead of the play. But let's talk about those drills that we saw and witnessed the oohs and ahs from the crowd, because if Sean Payton did fall in love, those drills would have been part of it.
I thought McCarthy made up for some of that on his deep balls, down the right and left sideline, particularly down the right sideline. If anything, I mean, uh, looking at those plays, that's he missed a couple of them long, but I mean, he put plenty under him. He put plenty under him, but not too much.
Mm-hmm.
Nice velocity. Uh, it's the kind of play that you could say, okay, with better timing with the receiver that comes with practice, that's the kind of play it's going to hit.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm looking at that and seeing the ability to stretch down the field, make sure that you don't have the safeties cheating up and sacrificing on the back end. And that opens up horizons underneath. The thing I saw from McCarthy on some of those intermediate outs, especially the right side, was he was throwing before the break was made. So I thought he had the best anticipatory throws of any of the quarterbacks who were there.
Yeah.
Um,
Comebackers looked good because other
yeah.
guys were waiting for the guy to turn around,
Mm-hmm.
and McCarthy was throwing it as the guy was going to make their break.
You and I both hit on that when we were watching that together, and I didn't see anyone who matched that, and that's something that you have to do in a Sean Payton offense. Um, I think with Bo Nix and Michael Penix Jr. I mean, Bo Nix is going to be on schedule. I just don't know what's going to look like when you have to stretch out and go deep. I think there's a tool that JJ McCarthy has, particularly going deep to the right, that I'm not sure Bo Nix has right now. And yes, the majority of your throws are going to be short to intermediate, vast majority. I get that, but you've got to be able to stress the defense on the back end.
Right.
Um, I thought Spencer Rattler also had some nice throws as well, although it seemed to get a little bit away from him later on in the session. Michael Penix Jr., you know, this environment isn't the question for Michael Penix Jr.,
No,
right?
not at all. Not at
We
all.
know that he could, that maybe even if we throw Caleb Williams and Drake May, Jane Daniels into the mix, he may be the best pure passer in a vacuum.
Mm-hmm.
And the combine workouts are the ultimate vacuum. What happens under duress? That's the question. It wasn't going to be answered at the combine. That's where, again, he was on the same team as Bo Nix, so you can say some of the same things about Penix's practice that you did about Nix. I thought Penix did handle the pressure a bit better and made quicker decisions under duress than Bo Nix did down in Mobile, but it still doesn't answer the question about durability as well, which has to come into play. And
Right.
by the way, what do you think, looking back on, I know we talked about it a little bit, but what did you think of the Broncos going a little more negative in their interview with Penix and asking about the things that went wrong?
Yeah, because with Penix, as you were saying, in a vacuum, like you and I could have guessed that he would have looked outstanding in
Mm-hmm.
drills because he looked
Yeah.
outstanding in drills. That arm talent is just phenomenal. The way he can spin it, the way he can get it there in a hurry, he can throw in
Mm-hmm.
different arm angles, he can also throw in different trajectories. Like it really cuts nicely. It looks awkward because of his left-handed release, but we could have guessed that he would have been the best quarterback to throw at the combine. It's the stuff that when it doesn't go smoothly, the fact that he was different and it was different from other teams makes me wonder why the other teams didn't take that similar approach, Mace, because you and I have discussed it. Like it's not Penix when it's clean, it's Penix
Mm-hmm.
when it's dirty. Like I want to see how he looks when things don't go on script, and you're not going to get that at the combine. So maybe the Broncos were just trying to dig. Maybe it shows they like him a little bit more. You know what I mean? Really test him
Mm-hmm.
with some tougher questions. And you said the word uncomfortable. They made him
Yes.
uncomfortable, or tried to at least.
Tried to make him uncomfortable in the meeting just as he could be rendered uncomfortable in the pocket, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's probably where some of it came from. And we'll find out in due time whether he passed that test or not. The other thing, I mean, with Penix, obviously, you would be assuming a certain amount of risk, and the bottom line is, you're not taking him at 12, right? So that's either a trade down or trade for a second round pick and get back in the end of the first round. You've talked a lot about New England and the rumblings around them.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe looking into trading down, having a late first round pick, using that on Michael Penix Jr. That certainly is a possibility if they really want him. Because the other thing also is in play, and why taking a quarterback at the end of the first round, why there's some value to that is, of course, the fifth-year option that comes into play. I mean, we actually saw it just come into play recently from Lamar Jackson, right? He played on a fifth-year option and then got his long-term contract done.
Yeah.
So that's the sort of thing that matters in the calculus of it all. If you take a quarterback in round 2, if they work out, all of a sudden that price tag goes way up in year 5 because you don't have that option. Instead of paying, something in the $20 million range, you're paying, what could be 35, 40, 45, who knows what it's going to be in a few years. So
May I guess something about you, my friend?
sure.
I guess you were pretty good at calculus. Me, more geometry. I'm an artist. I understand angles. But
How did
let's
you do
do.
trigonometry then? That's
I didn't take anything past algebra 2.
Paxton's still on your mind. Paxton Lynch, huh? Come on,
Well, be
man.
careful. Be careful. I will say
People
this.
remember.
Let's do the algebra on this then, because Russell Wilson released today,
Mm-hmm.
as soon as they get back from the combine, equals Sean Payton fell in love. We just don't know with who.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, had he not had someone within their range, because they're not getting Caleb Williams, and they're probably not getting Jane Daniels, but had someone within their range not wowed him, would they have released Wilson today?
Yeah, because this was inevitable. And I think to some degree, Sean Payton did want Russell Wilson just gone, wanted to move on from it.
Okay.
But I think it crystallized. Maybe it would have lingered another couple more days, right? Maybe they worked the phones, whatever. But the fact that they wrapped up their work at the combine yesterday and then today they make the move, that timing is notable. Mm-hmm. I think it's not everything, and maybe it's not the number one thing, but I think it's not all encompassing, but I think it matters.
It definitely matters. And well, there's something that only you and I would know this, Mace, because when I was leaving Indianapolis, Joe Lombardi was on my flight, and I said hi to him. I didn't say anything else. But is that interesting that, McCarthy's group wraps up and then Joe's moving on? Does that mean anything in your eyes, or
no?
Just had to get back to Denver.
Receivers, running backs, tight ends, quarterbacks were all done. I imagine in terms of evaluating the offensive lineman making that call, that's a Zach Strief call, right?
Mm-hmm.
And Zach Strief was hanging around on Sunday for the workouts. So I don't think there's anything to be made of that. And there's a pretty long history of the combine for people. They stay as long as they have to, right?
Right.
Defensive coaches, they were gone, they were gone by Friday night, right? They watch the defensive backs work out and then back on the birds home. So I don't think there's as much to make of that as it might seem. I think it's more that his evaluation was done. His time was done. Go home, get some family time.
Get some family time and get it going and find that next quarterback. Russell Wilson, release now, Mace. And one of the questions that came up in our chat room on regular Orange and Blue today. I
like how you're leaning back, by the way. I have the same pose as I had on OBT1 here at my desk. And you're just leaning back, relaxing. I mean,
it's chill on this show, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. But what was one of the number one questions? What's happening with George Payton?
Mm-hmm.
I don't want anyone to lose their job ever. And George Payton would have a job like that. If George Payton is fired after the draft, he will have a job like that. There is no question. There is no doubt. He has a sterling reputation. I've said it before. I think he's a good scout. I don't think he's a good GM. What happens with George Payton because of Russell Wilson? I believe we all know what could happen, but that's after the draft. And, well, right now he's the guy. Maybe if he helps find the guy, you know what I mean? They're able to get McCarthy, or maybe it's Bo Nix. Maybe it's Drake May. Drake May is falling. Okay, does he fall to the Broncos? All right, maybe if Peyton's part of that, Mace, he can begin to right the wrongs of the Russell Wilson deal.
Look, there's a lot of value that George Payton has. The scouting part of it. He's exceptionally well connected in the NFL.
Mm-hmm.
He's a good deal maker. Now, I can hear people listening to that phrase and responding, how can he be a good deal maker? He made the Russell Wilson trade. No, what I'm talking about is the ability to work with another personnel executive with final say authority to craft a trade, right?
Right.
You give something, you get something. Look, one thing about George Payton is that and this is what happens when you have a vast network and you have a lot of relationships, and this is the way it should be. A good trade should be good for both sides, right? You should feel a pinch in what you gave up, but you should feel good about what you're getting back.
Right.
Right. So you don't get all of what you want, but these two sides feel good. And then you look back in a couple of years and everyone's happy with the trade. That's what you want, right? I think, respectfully, John Elway was a little bit of the car dealer kind of mode, which, hey, befits his business background, made a lot of money in automotive dealerships, and tried to win every deal, tried to win every contract negotiation, right?
Oh yeah.
George, I want to win this deal. I want to pull something over them. George Payton's trying to make a fair deal for both sides, and there's a lot of value in that because there are people who will pick up the phone when George Payton calls that won't pick up the phone when other executives call because they feel that other executive might just be trying to screw them.
Yep.
And George doesn't have that reputation at all in NFL circles.
Yep.
And that is a huge part of his value for the Broncos.
There's another part of his value, Mace, and it comes in the balance of him and Sean Payton. Sean's super aggressive, super alpha, super go, and George is more like, hey, pump the brakes. So that combination can work, and let's see if it still does work. If he's part of the solution, the next guy, and it works, Mace, George Payton has saved his job, whether people like that or not.
Yeah. The calls for George Payton's head, I feel like it's not necessarily about making the organization better. It's punitive, right? It's like, this is the worst trade ever, and somebody's head must roll. that's what it feels like rather than saying, okay, are we a better organization if we move on from George Payton? Like the Broncos decided they were a better organization and a better team moving on from Russell Wilson today. Mm-hmm. They decided that instead of having $37 million more hit on their cap over time, they decided to just not fall victim to the sunk cost fallacy and figured they could get quarterback production that fits more what they're trying to accomplish, that fits more of where they want this team to go, the lower variance, more consistent type of production, right? And do so, at least in the short term, for a substantial cost savings, because this is the other thing. And this is why a great deal of the conversation revolves around the draft, because the draft gives you 4, perhaps 5, depending on the level of that fifth-year option, gives you those years of cost control on a quarterback. A veteran, even a younger career veteran like a Mac Jones, Sam Darnold, others that we could throw out there, they're only offering you a couple of years, right? Whereas maybe not even that much. Whereas a rookie offers you up to 5, and it's a deep year for the draft in terms of quarterbacks.
Right.
I mean, that's, look, this is also the season where all these prospects get diced up to no end, right? And you end up focusing on the flaws more at this time of year. Oh,
trust
JJ,
me, we've heard that about JJ basically.
Yeah, JJ can't throw the outs. Bo Nix can't push it downfield. Drake May comes from a system that requires a lot of lead time, and he seemed nervous at his press conference on Friday. Kale Williams. I still can't believe that opening question. Basically calling him a coward for not working out. I'm like, what the heck was he doing the last
amateur
couple of
hour
years?
at the combine?
Yeah, this was the most amateur hour of any in terms of some of the media that was there of any combine I've been to. But I could do an entire show on that.
Yeah,
holy smokes.
Yeah, and so you mentioned it. The Broncos decided they were better off without Russell Wilson today. I'm going to ask you the question, and my answer may shock some. Would you feel the Broncos would be better off without George Payton?
No, and that's why
my answer is no.
That's why I'm keeping him around.
Yeah, because Sean's your de facto GM. He's making the tough calls, but George is working the back end of the draft. Sean's not paying attention to the 7th rounders. Mm-hmm. George is, and he's glad to do so. Reputation, he's there, and this Russell move shows that he's willing to wash away the mistakes, something John Elway almost refused to do. It's one of the reasons why they don't draft Josh Allen, because Paxton Lynch is still on the God-blessed roster.
You almost said something worse than that.
Until, what's his name? The old Stanford backup guy. Why do I forget Kevin Hogan?
Kevin Hogan.
He becomes available, and they're like, hey, you made the team. Next day, Paxton didn't make the team coming out of training camp because Kevin Hogan became available. So you were okay with cutting him in August, but you weren't okay with getting rid of him in April when you could have got a real quarterback. So Elway kind of would hold on to things and tighter your grip, the more star systems slip through your fingers, Mace.
Nice. Well, it's funny. You mentioned balance, and I kept thinking about the belief that in the Star Wars universe that there should be a balance between the light side and the dark side, between the Jedi and the Sith, right? The balance between Sean Payton, who historically is always wanting to trade up when you target a specific player, forget about the cost, doesn't matter what you're giving up in draft capital, go get your player, go get your guy. And George Payton, who has talked about the more darts philosophy of drafting, having more picks, and last week waxed poetic about the virtues of moving down in the first round, right? So the question is, it's good to have that balance, but is there a point where the balance becomes 2 battering rams? Like if you're going to have opposite philosophies, usually one has to give at some point, right? Mm-hmm.
It wouldn't a quarterback be the one that makes it break? Honestly, let's say George Payton does not like JJ McCarthy. Let's say that's the case, and Sean Payton does in fact love JJ McCarthy.
Yeah,
that's something that could break it. that decision, that type of decision could break it.
Yeah.
So if you're George, do you just go with the yes sir, right away, sir? I really love him. Me too, sir. Like, if you're George, what do you do? I would hope that he would stick to his principles. You know what I mean? And just, if he's got an evaluation, he sticks with that evaluation, regardless. Combine didn't change my grade on JJ McCarthy, didn't change the grade for who I consider the greatest draft analyst there is, Dane Brugler. Didn't change his grade.
Yeah.
He's still a high second round pick in terms of tools. And, tools abound at the combine, man. We saw Nix spin it pretty. Penix was amazing throwing the ball.
The goal was just, the goal was just don't look bad.
Right.
Yeah. Don't bleep the bed. Right? Don't. Okay.
Don't Hartman the bed.
Don't crap the bed. Okay. Just don't. That's basically it. Anything else is, gravy beyond that. And the most important things that happened for JJ McCarthy at the combine weren't what we saw on the field on Saturday at Lucas Oil Stadium. It's what happened in the interviews. And whether he impressed Sean Payton and company or not.
Could they make him uncomfortable?
JJ?
Yeah.
I don't know. That kid seems pretty unflappable. We focused on what he said regarding meditation. He seems to have a pretty even-keeled sense of things. And yet, it's not even-keeled to the point of where you're saying, man, is this guy a cyborg?
Right. Where's the fire? It's not a Russ thing.
No. Watch the way one of the things I loved about JJ McCarthy, watch the way he was like really bouncing around during the workouts and
high-fiving his teammates.
High-fiving. So he was supporting like everyone. And you know what? That's something that really says a lot because that's a tough environment mentally. Like, because you're kind of focused on not screwing up, right?
And they want your job too.
Yeah, it's like you're thinking, don't boot this, and you can almost see. I mean, there were a few of the passers like
Hartman.
I think it was Hartman, Austin Reed of Western Kentucky in the second set. That they were like, it's almost like they were thinking more, don't mess this up, and then you see it just sail.
Well, I'll quote
toward the
Otto.
stands.
I'll quote Otto from Simpsons. Don't choke, don't choke. Oh man, I choked.
Right. Oh, that's good.
I love that quote, by the way.
Don't you? Oh man, I choked.
Oh man, I choked. Yeah. Yeah. So we didn't see that from some guys. We'll see how many pro days they attend now, because I guarantee they'll be at Michigan. Other than that, it'll be interesting if they're at the guys that are out of reach. If they're at LSU, which Sean Payton just might be anyway because of his connections and their connections with Jaden. If they're at North Carolina, which is where they should be. Anytime I hear that Drake May is falling, Mace, I just go, good. I'm fall right to Denver. He's my number 3 quarterback. McCarthy's my number 5 quarterback. So just based on film grades, that would be an advantage. Even though I like JJ's personality better, it ain't a personality contest, baby. It's about W's. So
you have Nix over McCarthy, or do you have Penix over McCarthy?
I have Nix over McCarthy.
I've got McCarthy over Nix right now.
Okay.
Yeah. So the Michigan Pro Day, by the way, March 22nd.
Okay.
That is, I believe that is 2 weeks from this Friday. So that I imagine that would mean Sean Payton going from Michigan's if he goes there, going from Michigan's Pro Day down to the league meetings in Orlando. And then on the other side of the league meetings is the following Wednesday, LSU Jaden Daniels. And I think that's obviously a stretch. I don't think Jaden Daniels is realistic for the Broncos at all.
No.
But, how much homework are they going to do on every possibility, right? I think that's something worth asking.
Something worth watching for.
Yeah.
That's next on our schedule before owners meetings is like, let's get some pro days. and see where the Broncos go and see if that gauges, can we gauge anything from their interest? And yes, there is stuff to take away. I know I've seen it in the comment section, like, oh, it's just combine, underwear, interviews. No, it's not nothing. It's not everything, but it's not nothing what they do or don't do at the combine.
Yeah, certain things are more important than others, but every little thing, it's a data point, right? Now, some data points matter more than others. Some data points you're counting times 10, others you're counting just times 1, right? What, for Michael Penix Jr., maybe the combine workout is a data point, but the Michigan game is 3 data points. But then on the flip side of that, the Texas game's 3 data points, right? Texas isn't quite as deep all 3 levels on defense, but they got some dudes up front that we saw over the weekend, right? They had some quality. Penix dealt with the pressure the Longhorns brought flawlessly. So.
And he's had 2 years of staying healthy, and Ian Rappaport said his combine reports and medicals were excellent. These are all good signs for Michael Penix, who I believe has worked his way back into the first round conversation. It's just more towards the end of the first round.
Right. But let me ask you this. Percentage that the Broncos take a quarterback in the first round?
99%.
Wow. I'm not going that high.
You don't go that high?
Well, I mean, it may work out that the guys that they want don't fall. They can't make a trade. Again, there are other interested parties, right? It's a competition.
Yep.
Somebody is going to be left without a dance partner, right?
Musical chairs, right?
Yeah. So I'm going to say because of that, and because other teams sit in more advantageous spots, again, you can debate whether it did the Broncos a lot of harm to go on that 5-game winning streak in retrospect. I'm going to say 55%.
That's really low.
I'm coming not straight down the middle, but as Bing Crosby once sang, but pretty close.
I'll give something to tip the scales as we wrap up this OBT2, Mace.
Okay.
It's Sean Payton. You brought it up talking to Mike Tanier, which, by the way, everyone subscribe to his Substack. It is so flipping good. But you brought it up. Like, Jane Daniels called him a guru. Look at the reverence that these quarterbacks. So some people may not like Sean Payton. Oh, he's a bully. Oh, he's a tyrant. Oh, he's chewed out Russell Wilson. Oh, man. Okay, those are your opinions. But the players that are going to get the coaching from him, these guys actually love the idea of playing for him.
Every guy in there.
Give me 56% at least. 57.
57. All right, I'll give you 57. Every quarterback in there knows what he did for Drew Brees, right?
Yep.
Not all coaches are created equal in those conversations. There are some, or at least from a quarterback perspective. Sean Payton, Andy Reid, Kyle Shanahan, Sean McVay, that you're going to listen to them just a little bit more. I'd even throw Mike McDaniel in there at this point as well, right? Sure. There are some coaches that are just going to make you tune in a bit more than others if you are a quarterback, right? And Peyton's one of those guys. It's not so much that I doubt the wherewithal of Sean Payton to want to make a deal. It's just looking at the landscape, looking at the competition, and also that they may have handed some roses to quarterbacks to go the next stage, but who's to say they end up getting down on one knee for any of these guys when all is said and done. Oh, by the way, there's competition elsewhere. Maybe the Broncos are the one that's walking away without a rose, right? I mean, that could happen too. And hey, as we saw this weekend, some dadgum good offensive tackles and some good pass rushers. I mean, the testing numbers for Jared Verse, they bring up memories of a DeMarcus Ware back in the day. So, I mean, there are possibilities here. So stay tuned.
Keep up with the latest on the Denver Broncos. Search for a quarterback at denversports.com. Follow Andrew Mason on all the socials at Mace Denver. And Mace, let's exit with our YouTube thing. Please help us by
like, comment, share, subscribe, hit that notification bell so that you never miss a vid. You know, we'll get the timing better when we're back in the studio.
Yeah.
And we got some rogue shows coming up later this month too.
We do.
You and me. Here we go. Orlando. Orlando's not near the beach, Cecil. It's in the middle of the state. It's in the middle of the peninsula.
Well, how do they get those palm trees then? There'll be some water around, right?
You can have palm trees anywhere in Florida. They don't have to be by the water.
Theater to the mind, for my mind.
I know. They have lakes, a lot of lakes in the Orlando area. So there you go.
All right.
But you don't want to go in. You don't want to go in the water for those lakes. You got alligators there, man.
Oh, keep me away from the gators, man.
Yeah, stay away from the fresh water. At least swimming in there. I mean, you can go on a boat, sure, but you better hope that the boat doesn't capsize. Otherwise, you might be gator meat.
We're going to need a bigger boat. He's Andrew Mason. I'm Cecil Lammey saying thanks for watching OBT2, everyone. Stay tuned and stay frosty.